Ever wonder what it really takes to build one of these like biopharma powerhouses? We'll get ready to dive deep into the story of Novo Nordisk, a company that's gone from dog pancreases to blockbuster weight loss drugs, all in just over a century.
It really is a fascinating case study in navigating the world of science and regulation and global markets, of course, and a story with some surprising twists and turns along the way.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to use their journey to kind of unpack, I guess, the key ingredients for building a successful biopharma company. So think of it like a blueprint for innovation, but with like a healthy dose of history and a few aha moments thrown in. We'll be drawing on insights from the Acquired Podcast's episode on Novo Nordisk, along with a scientific paper from one of the key researchers behind their GLP-1 drugs.
So buckle up. We're starting our journey back in 1921 with the discovery of insulin, a moment that really just changed everything for people with diabetes.
Yeah, I mean, before insulin, a diagnosis of type 1 diabetes was basically a death sentence, especially for children. But then a group of scientists in Toronto figured out how to extract insulin from dog pancreases. And that really opened the door to treatment.
And this discovery, I mean, it really set off a global race to scale production. Eli Lilly, a U.S. pharmaceutical company, quickly jumped on the opportunity. They secured exclusive licenses and, get this, started sourcing pancreases from slaughterhouses across Indiana.
Wow, talk about entrepreneurial hustle.
I know, right?
So meanwhile, on the other side of the world, a Danish couple, August and Marie Crow, were on a trip to the U.S. And Marie herself had type 1 diabetes. So you can imagine how this discovery must have felt like a beacon of hope for them.
Absolutely.
They learned about insulin directly from a Nobel laureate and were just determined to bring this life-saving treatment back to Denmark.
They joined forces with H.C. Hagedorn, a prominent Danish physician, and August Kongsted, a chemist who owned a chemical factory. And they managed to actually extract insulin using that Toronto method. And they saw incredible results in their initial tests. But scaling production, that was a major hurdle. They needed a sustainable way to produce enough insulin for the entire region.
And that's where things get really interesting. In 1923, they formed Nordisk Insulin Laboratorium, a very unique organization, not quite a company in the traditional sense, more like a foundation with a for-profit arm.
Yeah, and their mission was incredibly forward-thinking. Provide low-cost insulin in Scandinavia, export it for profit elsewhere, and then funnel all those profits back into diabetes research and patient care in their home country.
Wow.
It was a model that balanced social good with commercial success.
It's a model they've maintained to this day, too.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of what makes Novo Nordisk stand out even 100 years later.
But this ambitious venture, it wasn't without its challenges. Internal conflicts arose, and one of the key scientists, Harold Peterson, had a major falling out with Hagedorn over leadership and strategy.
So in a dramatic twist, Peterson left Nordisk and founded his own competing company, Novo Nordisk Laboratorium, right there in Copenhagen.
Now we have two insulin companies in Denmark, both vying for dominance in a rapidly growing market. And this rivalry would go on to fuel innovation for decades.
Yeah, the post-war period saw this rivalry heat up even further. Novo gained the upper hand, innovating with new forms of insulin like lente insulin, a slower-acting form that could be used as what's called basal insulin, providing a steady background level of insulin throughout the day. Even Eli Lilly recognized the potential of this innovation and licensed it from Novo.
Meanwhile, Nordisk was struggling to keep up. But then they brought in a new CEO. From outside the pharma world, Henry Brenham, who was actually a lumber executive, came in with a fresh perspective and a wartime CEO mentality, rejected a merger offer from Novo, and instead decided to invest heavily in rebuilding Nordisk's production capacity and building a global sales force.
This set the stage for what some called the insulin wars, a period of fierce competition between Novo and Nordisk, constantly pushing the boundaries, trying to capture market share, and just make insulin more accessible and convenient for patients. And this led to innovations like the insulin pen and insulin pumps, which revolutionized how people manage their diabetes.
But the winds of change were blowing through the pharmaceutical industry. The genetic engineering revolution was taking hold, and it was becoming clear that scale would be crucial for success in this new era. This realization ultimately paved the way for the merger of these two rivals in 1989. The insulin wars came to an end, and a new giant, Novo Nordisk, was born.
This merger created a company with a combined 50% global market share in insulin, a true force to be reckoned with. It also set the stage for their next big act, but we'll get to that in a minute. So here we have this newly merged company, Novo Nordisk, dominating the insulin market. But as they were consolidating their insulin empire, something else was brewing in their research labs that would completely change the game.
Enter Lean Strumsager, a scientist at Novo Nordisk who had a hunch that a naturally occurring hormone called GLP-1 could be the key to a whole new type of diabetes treatment.
Now, for those of us who aren't endocrinologists, can you break down what GLP-1 actually does, what makes it so special?
Of course, GLP-1, or glucagon-like peptide 1, is a hormone that our bodies produce naturally in the gut after we eat it, plays a crucial role in regulating blood sugar by stimulating insulin production when glucose levels are high. It also slows gastric emptying, making us feel fuller for longer, and even acts on the brain to suppress appetite.
So it sounds like GLP-1 has multiple benefits for people with type 2 diabetes, the kind of diabetes that's often linked to lifestyle factors and obesity.
Exactly, but there was a challenge. Natural GLP-1 breaks down in the body very quickly, making it difficult to use as a drug. That's where Lean's research comes in. She was determined to find a way to create a GLP-1 analog, a modified version of the hormone that would be more stable and longer lasting.
Okay, this is where the story takes a truly fascinating turn.
Ah,
Lean's research was actually inspired by studies on the venom of the Gila monster. Lizard, believe it or not. Scientists discovered that this venom contained a compound that mimicked the effects of GLP-1.
it's amazing how nature can inspire such groundbreaking discoveries.
Yeah.
Lean picked up on this research and started experimenting with different GLP-1 analogs, meticulously tweaking the molecule to find one that was both effective and long-lasting.
It sounds like a painstaking process.
It took years of research and countless modifications, but Lean was incredibly persistent. She faced skepticism from some colleagues and pressure to abandon the project, but she believed in the potential of GLP-1, and her dedication ultimately paid off. She developed a GLP-1 analog called liraglutide, which had a much longer half-life and showed very promising results in early clinical trials.
So they were initially focusing on liraglutide as a treatment for diabetes.
Yes, at first the focus was solely on type 2 diabetes, but then something really interesting happened during the clinical trials for liraglutide. They noticed that many patients were losing weight, even though that wasn't the primary goal of the study.
Wait, so a potential weight loss drug was discovered almost by accident?
It sounds that way, doesn't it? Lean recognized the significance of this observation and saw the potential of liraglutide for treating obesity. This was a pretty radical idea at the time. The prevailing view back then was that obesity was a lifestyle issue, not a medical condition deserving of treatment.
There was also a lot of stigma surrounding weight loss drugs. Many of the drugs available were either ineffective or came with serious side effects. Remember Fenfen, it was a popular weight loss drug in the 90s, but it was pulled from the market due to dangerous cardiovascular side effects.
Right, there was a lot of baggage associated with weight loss drugs, but Lean was convinced that liraglutide could be different. She had the data, she understood the science, and she was determined to make it work. She pushed Novo Nordisk to explore this new frontier despite the stigma and the risks involved.
And so in 2010, Novo Nordisk launched Victoza, a once-daily injectable GLP-1 agonist based on liraglutide for the treatment of type 2 diabetes.
And as you might expect, it became a blockbuster drug with millions of people benefiting from its ability to control blood sugar. But as we've seen throughout Novo Nordisk's history, there was another twist in the tale. Doctors began prescribing Victoza off-label for weight loss.
So even though it wasn't officially approved for weight loss, doctors were seeing enough positive results in their patients that they were willing to prescribe it for that purpose.
Exactly, the word was spreading that Victoza could help people lose weight, and patients were eager to try it. Novo Nordisk recognized that they had stumbled upon a massive untapped market, one with the potential to be even bigger than the diabetes market.
But there were challenges. Victoza wasn't specifically designed for weight loss, and it wasn't as effective as it could be. They needed a higher dose, a more targeted approach.
You're right. And so in 2014, Novo Nordisk launched Saxenda, a slightly modified version of liraglutide specifically for weight loss. It was a step in the right direction, but it still faced an uphill battle.
You mentioned earlier that there was a lot of stigma surrounding weight loss drugs. Did that impact the reception of Saxenda?
Absolutely. Many insurance companies refused to cover Saxenda, citing the fact that obesity was a lifestyle issue, not a medical condition. Plus, the results, while encouraging, weren't groundbreaking. Patients were losing weight, but not enough to justify the cost and inconvenience of daily injections for many people.
So they had a good idea, but they needed something truly revolutionary to break through the noise and change the game.
Exactly, and that's where semaglutide enters the picture.
Yeah.
This next-generation GLP-1 agonist was a true breakthrough. It had an even longer half-life, meaning patients only needed a weekly injection, and it was significantly more effective for weight loss, with clinical trials showing an average weight loss of 15% or more. This was a game changer.
Wow, 15% or more. That's a significant amount of weight loss,
Yeah.
especially compared to previous weight loss drugs. Sounds like they were finally onto something that could really move the needle, no pun intended.
I see what you did there, but you're right. This was a major leap forward. Novo Nordisk first launched semaglutide under the brand name Ozempic for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. And just like Victoza, it was a huge success, but the real revolution was about to begin.
I'm guessing this is where Wegovy comes in.
You got it in 2021. Novo Nordisk launched Wegovy, the weight loss version of semaglutide, and the world took notice. It was hailed as a game changer by major media outlets, and demand exploded. Wegovy wasn't just another weight loss drug, it was a potential solution to the global obesity epidemic, a problem that affects hundreds of millions of people worldwide.
It sounds like they had finally achieved what Lean Scrumsager set out to do all those years ago, develop a safe and effective treatment for obesity rooted in a deep understanding of human biology.
That's a great way to put it, but as we'll see, even with a groundbreaking drug like Wegovy, navigating the U.S. healthcare system is a whole other challenge.
So we've seen how Novo Nordisk went from this small Danish foundation to just this global biopharma giant. I mean, they've had their fair share of challenges and setbacks along the way, but they've also achieved some just absolutely incredible breakthroughs.
Yeah, a lot of that success can be attributed to their unique approach, almost like they have a secret playbook for navigating this complex world of drug development and commercialization.
Okay, so let's unpack that playbook. What are some of the key takeaways from their story that other companies or even individuals could learn from?
Well, first and foremost, they've consistently demonstrated this commitment to long-term thinking. They've been focused on diabetes for over a century, and they didn't jump on every fleeting trend. Instead, they built deep expertise in a specific area and just patiently played the long game.
That's a really important point, especially in today's world where everyone is obsessed with quick wins and instant gratification. It's a reminder that those real breakthroughs, those often take time and dedication, and a willingness to stick with something even when it's not easy.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another crucial element of their success, their willingness to embrace risk. Novo Nordisk invested heavily in that GLP-1 research, even when other companies gave up on it. They weren't afraid to pursue a path that others considered too risky or unconventional.
It's almost like they had a higher tolerance for uncertainty than their competitors. They were willing to just bet on the science, even when the outcome was far from guaranteed, and that bet paid off in a big way.
It did. Now, let's not forget the role of their unique ownership structure. Remember, they're majority owned by a foundation, which gives them a certain degree of insulation from short-term market pressures. This allowed them to make bolder decisions and invest in research that might not have been possible for a publicly traded company beholden to those quarterly earnings reports.
It's such an interesting aspect of their story. It really highlights how a company's ownership structure can have just a profound impact on its ability to innovate and take risks. And it also raises some intriguing questions about how we might incentivize more long-term thinking in the corporate world.
Absolutely. Now, another key takeaway is their ability to play what they call compounding games, as they say in the business world. Their decades of research in diabetes gave them a profound understanding of metabolic pathways and hormone regulation, and they were able to leverage that when they moved into the obesity space.
So it wasn't just a random decision to pursue obesity treatment. It was a calculated move that built upon their existing knowledge and expertise. And they were able to connect the dots and just see the potential synergy between these two seemingly distinct areas.
Precisely. And finally, let's not underestimate the importance of market selection. Novo Nordisk chose to focus on a massive global problem, obesity, with a huge unmet need. And this gave them a tremendous tailwind for growth and allowed them to create a product with the potential to impact millions of lives.
The takeaway here is that it's not enough to have a great product or a brilliant idea. You also need to choose the right market, one where there's a real need and a genuine opportunity to make a difference.
Exactly. And that's what makes Novo Nordisk's story so compelling. They've combined scientific innovation, strategic thinking, and a deep understanding of the market to create a truly impactful company.
But their journey also highlights some of the challenges and complexities of the healthcare system, particularly in the U.S.
You're absolutely right. Even with a groundbreaking drug like Wegovy, they've had to navigate a system that's often, opaque, fragmented, and driven by short-term financial incentives.
We saw how insurance companies were initially hesitant to cover weight loss drugs, citing the perception of obesity as a lifestyle issue rather than a medical condition. And this raises those important questions about access to treatment and affordability, and who ultimately benefits from the current system.
It also highlights the ethical dilemmas surrounding weight loss drugs, especially those as effective as Wegovy. There are concerns about potential misuse, pressure to conform to societal beauty standards, and the risk of exacerbating existing inequalities in access to healthcare.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, and it underscores the fact that scientific progress is only part of the equation. We also need to have thoughtful conversations about the ethical and social and economic implications of these advancements.
Novo Nordisk's story is a powerful reminder that building a successful company, especially in the biopharma space, requires more than just scientific brilliance. It demands a long-term vision, a willingness to take risks, and a deep understanding of both the scientific and societal landscape.
And as their story shows, it also requires a bit of luck and the ability to seize opportunities when they arise.
Yeah.
I mean, who could have predicted that the venom of a lizard would lead to a breakthrough weight loss drug?
It really is a testament to the power of scientific curiosity and the importance of being open to unexpected discoveries.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from the humble beginnings of insulin extraction to the cutting edge of obesity treatment. Hopefully this deep dive has given you a better understanding of what it takes to build a biopharma powerhouse and just the complexities of bringing life-changing treatments to the world.
It's been a fascinating journey, and I think there are valuable lessons here for anyone interested in the world of science and business, or just the power of human ingenuity to solve complex problems.
Join us next time as we continue to explore the stories behind some of the world's most impactful companies. Until then, keep asking questions and stay curious, and never stop learning.